Silver is finite, gold is finite, your efforts are finite, but what you're exchanging it for is infinite because they're creating this on a keyboard and it has no value to it. But they're getting you to accept that it has value because it's the way you're going to buy food.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Silver Bullion Television, SBTV. I'm your host, Patrick Vierra, part of the outreach team of Silver Bullion here in Singapore, where we want to help you truly secure your wealth. Ted Provenza, founder of the Provenza Group, joins us today. Ted is a retired CFP and fast becoming a favorite in the YouTube space simply because Ted speaks truth and truth is spoken here. And we're delighted to have Ted as a first time guest on SBTV. It's time to saddle up and silver up for Ted Provenza. Ted, welcome to SBTV. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. And I'm honored to be on your platform here. Thank you for inviting me, Patrick. I've been watching you for many years as well, and I feel honored. I feel like the new kid on the block that just invited to the party. Thanks for having me.
You're the life of the party right now. I'm glad to have you. I mean, I've seen your work as well, and the energy you have, the way you explain things, I think it makes it very easy for us to understand. And right now, we're at a point where we definitely need to understand what's going on. So I appreciate you being one of these guys that are helping us. And if you don't mind, as a first time guest on SBTV, could you tell us a little about your background?
Oh, sure. When I graduated from James Madison University, I'd all planned to go to work for Bethlehem Steel, and there were seven sales loop training program slots, and I was one of the seven. It's just that definitive. And when I graduated from James Madison in 1980, Carter had opened up the doors to foreign made steel, so all my plans got dashed. So I wasn't going to go to work for Bethlehem Steel anymore. I got humbled quite a good bit. So I wanted to flag in traffic out on York Road as they were putting in natural gas pipelines. So I thought, wow, this didn't really turn out the way that I thought. So I hit the books and really got into what I wanted to do. And lo and behold, I fell into printer ribbon manufacturing. So back in 1980, there were remember the Commodore 64 computer came out. Well, the printers came out shortly thereafter, and these little printers, Okidata, Diablo, Epson, they all needed printer ribbon. The printer ribbons were made with ink, and ink was mixed with mineral spirits, and mineral spirits allowed the ink to be fluid inside the nylon. So as the ink went around in the cartridge, if the ink was fresh, it would travel back the dry area through osmosis, would draw in the area of the ink, wet ink from the outside, so the ribbons lasted a lot longer. So when I sold the company, we sold it with a 38% net pre-tax profit margin because we had people that were homeless, not homeless, but people that were receiving governmental benefits that were poor. They were doing the sub-assembly work, putting the cartridge parts and pieces together. So the state actually loved what we were doing because it was piecework for them, and they paid us. They got paid by each individual unit that they put together. So we sold National Computer Ribbons, and the firm that took care of the sale of it said, "Hey, we'll do your estate plan for you for free." And I said, "Oh, this would be interesting. Gebhardt and Smith doesn't do anything for free." So when it got the estate plan back, I noted they drafted themselves all throughout the estate plan as successor trustees and co-trustees. So I took it to a friend of mine who's an estate planning attorney and said, "What's up with this?" They never even asked me. And they said, "Well, that's the way it goes, Ted." And I said, "Well, that's not the way I think it should go." And he said, "Well, what do you got in mind?" And I said, "I think we need to start a fully integrated estate planning firm where the legal, the tax, the investments, and the finances are all addressed in one meeting and one team works on everything." Because in the past, and you're probably in the same situation, you go one place for an attorney, another place for tax advice, another place for investment advice, and you got the insurance guy over on the end. And nobody likes each other. They don't work together. Yet you're going to try to cobble something together, a plan out of these people, and get it to go down the road. I liken it to much like taking an engine from Ford, bolting it to a transmission from Chrysler, and putting it into a body or frame or whatever made by Toyota. Chances are, you and I working together, we could probably get it to go down the road, right? But it wouldn't be very fuel efficient. It probably wouldn't be very reliable either. So I thought, why don't we put all this together and make it cohesive? And lo and behold, it started out back in 1987 and built it up to 700 million in assets under management and sold it in 2010. And that's when a client of mine had died, and he'd had all his silver in his house, and I'm the successor trustee. And I go in and take a look at all this, and what's all this? So I found the receipts and took it back to the place that he bought it. And the owner of the shop at that time, guy's name was Bob Mangles. He said to me, "Hey, young man, I haven't seen you here before. What brings you in?" I said, "Well, apparently one of your clients died, and I got to turn all this silver that you got here in the funds and distribute out to the beneficiaries, the named beneficiaries. The beneficiaries are the National Rifle Association, American Heart Association, Alzheimer's Association. Charlie's wife died of Alzheimer's. So my job then was to corral all the assets and make distribution. Well, something happened. One of the beneficiaries was incorrectly named in the document, so that required what's called a black robe ruling, which took about 2.5 years. However, what happened in March of 2013, knowing that Charlie died in November 2012? So I'm only the administrator of this estate for like 3 months, right? And then I hear there's going to be a bail-in on the island of Cyprus. I said, what in the world? Because when I started learning about the silver, I dove into it big time. Um, I get up at 1 a.m. in the morning and I'm studying stuff overseas. No one can tell me anything. I have to be the person that learns it on my own. I have to be the guy that digests it. It has to be done my way. Otherwise, it just doesn't sit right in my brain. And that's why we did the estate planning. With all the thousands of trusts that we did, we've never had one complaint. When you're dealing with money like this, it has to be done right. And we put something inside each one of the trusts called an in terrorem clause, and that stops the infighting. I hope your clients have taken note of this. In terrorem, I-N, second word, terrorem, Terrorem. In terrorem clause basically says if anyone chooses to challenge the terms of your trust, they're automatically disinherited. So your children, your beneficiaries, have to like what you want to leave them, or they get nothing. And I think that's the way it should be, because a lot of post-mortem expenses are generated after death. Actually, that's what it means, post-mortem, post-after-mortem death, right? But anyway, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry just here in the U.S., and it's larger than that overseas from what I'm learning. We have people from Canada, from Australia, and from the UK saying, hey, we'd like to learn about estate planning too. Well, what I'm finding out is legal constructs are rather similar around the globe. So I'm suggesting to these people, get the book, Understanding Living Trusts, come along with a program, learn how it works, so that when you do start stacking, when most of them already have, your property is owned properly. Because you don't want to put this in writing inside your trust document. It should go inside of what's called an estate planning letter, part of your estate planning portfolio. So this is where we think everyone should be migrating to, where every aspect of the estate plan is actually in here. Okay. So again, that's just a pass-through thing as well. We want to make sure that everyone has this done right, because you could really wind up with your nose in quite a bubble if you wind up leaving assets in your own name at death, because someone's got to come up out of the grave and sign your name, and that's impossible when you're dead. Now, a long time ago, you just put a little bell on there. You ring the bell, you're still alive. Remember that? They used to bury people without a proper autopsy, so they wouldn't know whether or not they're alive or dead, because they were eating stuff off of iron or lead. It was armalite, I believe, was the name of the type of metal that they used, trays. But anyway, what would happen is they'd get some kind of poisoning, and they think they'd be dead, but actually they weren't. Did you ever hear about the people putting a bell ringer or a little bell outside the grave, and somebody would sit by the graveyard to see what the bell rung? You got out the shovel real quick and unearthed the coffin. At any rate, I'm ringing the bell here right now, folks. The thing is that the dollar is on its last days, and you know this because the price of everything is going up. It's not the price of everything going up, though. It's the value of the dollar going down. A gallon of gas is a gallon of gas is a gallon of gas. Now, Patrick, I don't know how old you are, but I'm 66. When I was about 12 or 13, I remember buying gas with my dad, and they would offer mugs and steak knives and all kind and S&H green stamps. Remember all that? And now what do they offer? Nothing. But what are they charging? About $4 a gallon. And the reason being is because the value of the dollar has been reduced so much that it takes $4 to equal what a gallon of gas used to cost, which is about 25 cents. However, if you look at what a gallon of gas actually should be costing, and you look at it in terms of what the value of a pre-1965 coin is, because a dollar 40 in pre-65 coinage equals 1 troy ounce. You can take, well, you just tell people take it to the bank. We don't take it to the bank anymore. Put it underneath your bed. So where we are right now is the dollar is on its last days, and we're going back to what the dollar was originally supposed to be. As in the beginning of our conversation, we spoke a little bit off camera about Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution. being that the only thing we're supposed to be using as money here in the United States is gold and silver. So if you pull up a pocket copy of this, okay, right in here, it tells you what this is, okay? Article 1, Section 10. And I would argue that if you've taken out a loan and you didn't see any gold and silver pass hands, I don't think the loan was constitutional. And the loan then shouldn't have been even a legal loan to have been issued in the first place. So, what do we do with all this debt that's been created out of nothing? These guys that are creating the debt are basically alchemists. They're taking nothing and attaching something to it. So, if you're a banker, you're not actually lending out gold and silver, are you? You're lending out a promise, okay? And the promise is it's backed by gold and silver, but it's not.
If you're enjoying this interview with Ted Provenza and I, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. And did you know that at Silver Bullion, there are 6 different types of accounts to fit your needs? To find out more, go to www.silverbullion.com.sg, click on the signups tab, and choose from one of these 6 types of accounts. Or email me, Patrick at silverbullion.com.sg, and I'll help to get you started. Yeah, I completely get it. I can already see the passion coming out here. Um, that Commodore 64, I think you might have been in competition with the Radio Shack Tandy computer or one of those guys back then. So yes, I'm dating myself here as well. But Ted, when you came across the silver from your client, I think you had mentioned how you needed to liquidate it in some ways, and you went to the dealer, I guess, where you saw the receipts from, and he had mentioned to you that you are exchanging this for some paper with ink on it.
It's as incongruent to you as it was to me, isn't it? I mean, when you boil it down to such a guttural level as that, you wonder what the hell are we actually working for? I mean, what are the representations that you're seeing as digits in your computer screen as far as your life's earnings on a digitized account in a bank? I mean, what is it? What is it in the bank? And with fractional reserve banking, which is what we're underneath of right now, this is all part of Keynesian economics. Keynesian economics says that you can have one pie and feed the whole world. You just have to make the slices a little thinner. So this is not reality, okay? And all these Keynesian experiments, they always blow up at the end. And they always blow up in the same way. That's why I'm not some kind of savant or whatever. It's not true. All I'm doing is we're students of history. This is what happens throughout history. Now, you know that the dollar that you're holding is going to become worthless, right? Well, then why don't you exchange it for something that's immutable wealth, something that is defined in the Constitution as wealth? If you realize we need to get back to olden days, we need to get back to the way our country was originally founded. All the stuff that's going on nowadays is all a result of Keynesian economics getting control of society. See, when you can create money on a keyboard and you can pass it out to your buddies, you can direct the whole course of history. You can pay people to do things you would never think that they would do. Maybe because it's not them that they're trying to protect. Maybe they want to try to protect their grandchildren. Either you do this or your grandchildren will never see the light of day again. And most of us would fight hand and tooth for our children and grandchildren. But these are the types of evil, nasty people that are out there trying to continue to foster their power over us through this BIS. And it's a very interesting story. I don't know if you have time, but very interesting story how Amire Rothschild got control of the finances over in England. He lied on the floor of the stock exchange, saying that Napoleon had broken through the lines at Waterloo, when he hadn't. And so, as a result, all the traders in London, they wanted to sell off their stock because they were wondering, they were concerned that Napoleon and his forces would come in and blast them all up, you know. So after Rothschild's buying all the stock coming in, he runs out of money and he reaches out to his 4 brothers in the other parts of the world and says, "Hey guys, I'm buying stock like crazy. I need money." So they send him money immediately, okay? And he continues buying stock until he got just about all the stock that was there. And then he let out the rumor that it wasn't true. Napoleon was held back. Then what wanted to happen? Well, the traders on the stock exchange floor, they wanted to get their stock back. Do you think Rothschild wanted to sell it back to them? No. That's how Rothschild became the sole lender to the crown. And then he was quoted as having said, "I care not what laws or what puppets is put on the throne of a country that I control the funds in." Basically, if you can control the money of a country, you can control the direction of that country. And I think we all can agree here right now, the direction that we're going in. Talking about lobbing nuclear bombs at each other is completely at the end game right now. The curtains need the credits need to be drawn. Toto needs to grab the guy by by the back of the ankle, yank him out from behind the curtain, and that's the end of it. Pull the plug. We're done.
Right, right. I remember reading through all these stories as well. But in a recent video you put out on your YouTube channel titled "Banks Are Unwinding," you mentioned how there are stories today of bank accounts being frozen, credit unions holding checks, even apps in some ways are being scrutinized when it comes to transferring money. Why are we seeing this policing of sorts?
There isn't any money. Before we started recording here, I was telling you that a friend of mine that I met at a gas station in Westminster getting gas one time in the RV, and he happened to be getting diesel at the same time, as me. And turns out we started chatting about silver. Turns out he works at the FDIC. He works on the one floor underneath of where his boss works, and he was on the elevator with Janet Yellen and Jerome Powell going out of the office. He's saying, Ted, there's no money at the FDIC. He said now they've come up with something that's called maiden lane. Okay, it's an off balance sheet entry that the FDIC is using in order to cover up some of the bailouts that they're doing. It's called maiden lane. This is highly interesting stuff that's going on. It's all smoke and mirrors. And if this is what I'm telling you that's going on, do you think there's other things that are going on as well? No, it's real. Everything I'm telling you is 100% true. I have no agenda here. I'm not selling anything, not being compensated in any way. I'm trying to help people. I know what's going on. You better exit the currency of the realm the currency that you currently have right now. It's all fiat anyway, and you better get into the coin of the realm. And whether you hold it or silver bullion holds somebody has got to hold your money because somebody is holding your money now. And you know what? It isn't you. If you're holding paper, you're not holding your money. Somebody else is.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you're talking about this also because a couple months ago, an article in CNBC stated hundreds of U.S. banks may be at risk of failure. Even the Fed expects more bank failures. I think some 280 banks or somewhere around there face a dual threat of both the commercial real estate losses and the forward potential losses tied into the higher interest rates. But when you hear that some 280 small and regional banks have their snorkels barely above water in an ocean of debt, what else comes to mind for you?
What are the big ones that are out of money? How about J.P. Morgan Chase? J.P. Morgan's in big trouble right now. These derivative positions that these banks have, Patrick, are off. They're so criminal, these people should be strung up and hung. This is financial crimes of the highest order. Imagine having $57 billion of a market cap that's $1 billion for a bank. And whose $1 billion is it anyway? Does it belong to the bank or does it belong to the depositors? Or does it belong to the investors? How many people actually own this money? How many people think they own it? How many people really do own it? Who owns the digits? And what is the process by which you get your money out of the stock market? You got to go to your broker, right? The broker then goes to the back office, which a lot of times is a company called Computershare out of Australia. So the communication is going to go out of New York from Seed and Company to Computershare in Australia, back to Seed and Company to finally get to the DTCC, which stands for the Depository Trust Clearing Corporation. They're a $56 trillion company. $56 trillion company. How do you regulate a $56 trillion company? Because you can buy any regulator you want, and they already have. So this whole thing has got to be unwound and is being unwound. When Janet Yellen says she created $21 trillion in new debt since the beginning of the year, that's not the end of the story. It's been hypothecated, rehypothecated, and derivatized and synthetic derivatized. So you have a multiplier of 7 times the 21 trillion. So what's actually been created is 140 some trillion. Now, a billion seconds ago was 1959. A billion minutes ago, Jesus walked the earth. And a billion hours ago, nothing two-legged walked the earth. Now, think of this. A trillion is 1,000 billion. At some point in time, these numbers are completely theoretical. And we're taking on debt at such a rapid pace. Think of it as a cannonball falling at a height never seen before, at a rate never experienced before. You're going to have to stop the cannonball from falling, first of all. That's analogous to stopping the accumulation of additional debt, right? Then somehow you're going to have to muster the strength to throw this cannonball back up in the air. That would be the analogy of paying the money back, right? Is that even possible? with the number of office buildings that are left vacant, folks, there's a storm coming. The shiitake mushrooms are about ready to hit the storm right now, and there is no way out of this thing because we're not going to go back to these office buildings being used before. You know why? Because in the United States of America, we have 14.2 square feet of commercial space, which is non-real estate, non-residential space. 14.2 square feet of non-residential space, commercial space, okay? For every man, woman, and child. You want to know what the global average is? 1.2 square feet. Why is the United States so overweighted in this area? Because the money was so cheap. And why was the money so cheap? Because of different rules that had to be made to requiring other countries to hold our dollar so they could facilitate trade.
Yeah, Ted, I've heard you say we want our money honest and anonymous. In your view, how do we get that?
We go back to Austrian monetary economics. We go back to sound money. Sound money got its name from the sound that it makes when you drop it on a hard surface. It's a fraction of a second, but it makes a very distinct ting, a high pitched ting. Okay? And back in 1965, they stole our money from our money. They took the silver out of our silver. We're supposed to have silver in our coins according to the Constitution. So since 1965, we have not been on an honest monetary system. So then the next question I would recommend you do some research yourself is how long then does a fiat currency actually last? What is historical average for how long a fiat currency lasts? But let's first of all define what a fiat currency is. When it's no longer backed, when it's no longer redeemed by silver and gold, okay, the currency then becomes fiat, which is a Latin term mean so be it. It's a decree, okay? So this is the way that it's going to be. You're going to accept these dollars, and the dollars aren't worth anything. They're not even worth the paper they're not even printed on because most of these deposits are electronic. So there isn't any money backing up our money. So in 1965, they took the money from our money. And now what we're doing is we're playing around with digits, and the people that are closest to the keyboard that are creating the digits are the ones that get their policies implemented. They get their candidate elected. Oh, Ted didn't say that, did he? Anyway, the truth is coming out here, isn't it? And you know what? You can't penalize me because I'm not being compensated. There's no money changing hands here. I'm not asking anyone in the public to do anything outside of pay attention. Grow your brain, become a student of history, learn that the currency that you're holding always ends because right now all currencies on the face of the planet are in fact fiat. And the way we're going to get rid of this is not getting rid of one country's fiat currency. You're going to get rid of the heart of the Hydra. The heart is the BIS. This is the company that owns all the banks around the globe. So, anyway, I hope you're not real smart to be able to Google where Ted lives and come knocking on my door. Ted, we heard what you had to say. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Okay, Patrick?
No, we won't tell everyone that you live on Pennsylvania Avenue. So we'll keep that we'll keep that a secret. No, but excuse me. It's interesting. I really like hearing the stories of pre-65 coins. As a kid, my mom would sit me on the bed. We'd empty the old piggy bank, and we would go through the coins and look for 64 and whatever we could find earlier. And because of that silver content, and today when people wanted that $15 an hour minimum wage, they really only needed $1.50 roughly in 64 quarters or half dollars, whatever it might be. But anyway, that's a whole nother different story. But when I look at that silver to gold ratio chart, I look at a long chart, 325 years or so. It was 16 to 1 for a very, very long time, a few hundred years. And then in 1894, we saw the first spike where the ratio doubled from about 16 to 32 to 1. And the cause of that spike, believed to be in part, was that Sherman Silver Purchase Act, where the government managed the demand for silver, thus affecting the price of silver. So ever since then, we've never really gotten back to that ratio. And I just wanted to ask you here, do you think the silver price is still managed in some way?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt, because the real mining ratios have been decreasing, and they're decreasing because of something called sulfides that are found in gold. So sulfites are not found in silver. Silver is allowed to, because of the lack of presence of sulfites. Silver, as it travels from the center of the Earth, okay, in molten form, travels further up to the Earth's surface than gold. Okay, so what's happening now is they put out a narrative, okay, that there's a lot more silver than gold out there, right? Isn't that what they just told you from this cockamamie story that they made up? Well, I have empirical proof, Patrick, that mining ratios are going to continue to decrease from current 7.1 ratios to below 7.1 to 1, which means you're going to get less than 7 units of silver out for every 1 unit of gold. They're telling you the story in the opposite direction in order to get you not to put your hard earned purchasing power into silver. Silver is the money, okay? And they don't want you to have your money in the silver. They want you to have your money in digits because they can control you at that point. So, for instance, let's suppose we go to a CBDC, which is not going to happen. CBD stands for Central Bank Digital Currency, which is the BIS personified and magnified, where they control every transaction. Patrick, you've already had a can of Coke this week. You can't have another one. But Ted, I used the can of Coke to clean the corrosion off my battery terminals. Sorry, Patrick, can't argue with the computer. That doesn't fall outside of our platform here. So it's going to be a hard set of rules, and we don't want to live, but that's not freedom. That's why we want our money honest and anonymous. We want our money honest because it's got to be real, and anonymous because we don't want to be tracked. I don't want to be tracked. I'm sure you don't want to be tracked either. Now, I know a lot about the tracking technology going on over there in Singapore, as well as China. Yeah, and I think you might too. But this stuff has got to be swept out from underneath the rug. It's got to be cleansed. We need the sunlight to come and purify all the lies and all the mistruths that are out there. Silver is very, very valuable, and it's becoming more and more expensive to get out of the ground. Mining silver and mining Bitcoin are on two different sides of the planet. People die mining silver. They lose limbs mining silver. They get sick mining silver. They get cancer mining. They get black lung. You don't have any of that problem when you're mining Bitcoin. Also, Bitcoin, BTC, isn't that what the acronym is? Baby trafficking coin? What in the world? Where's this stuff coming from? And who is this Satoshi Nakamoto guy? I'm telling you, I'm speaking the truth. You know this, Patrick. I know you know this. Everything I'm telling you is true. The problem is most people are afraid to say it. I'm not. I don't have an agenda. I want everybody on the face of the planet to understand what's going on. You got to get back to the money of your country. And then once you have the money of your country in your own possession, you need to make sure that the real estate that you own with the money in your own possession is owned properly. Because that's what's happening. That's exactly what's happening. And I'm glad that people can see the light because all they need to do is see that something exists, okay? They don't have to manifest it at this point in time. What I'm trying to do, Patrick, is let them see that there is a bright future, a future so bright for all humanity around the globe. Right now, there are 151 taxes on each loaf of bread here in the United States of America. 151 taxes on one loaf of bread. Yes. What would a loaf of bread cost if that tax wasn't there? Was that tax there prior to 1913? No, it was not. How did all our politicians get together on December 23rd, 1913, and get together in Washington, D.C. and vote for this amendment, Article 6, Amendment 16 of the Constitution, bringing in the Federal Reserve Bank and the Internal Revenue Service in one fell swoop? There's supposed to be a quorum, isn't there, Patrick? How did these people get home after leaving from voting on the 23rd to make it home in time for Christmas on the Christmas Eve on the 24th? Did we have jets back then? Was Boeing around back then? Was McDonnell Douglas around back then? Were we transporting people across the country back then? Or were they taking trains? How did the right number of people show up in D.C. to even vote for this thing in the first place? I'm telling you, I do not think that the debt is going to be. I don't think the debt that we owe, or they say that we owe, is going to be inflated away, and I don't think it's going to be defaulted on. It's going to be simply reneged because it was never real in the first place. You'll see. What I'm sharing with you is all real stuff. You may not know it yet, but you will. Nothing that I've told you is not true. Some of the things that I've told you about, you've seen historical precedents for. Like, I'm only showing 89 copies of currencies on my platform over here. Would you like me to show you? Have you seen them before? Here, I'll show you. Yeah, look. Here's my office, first of all. This isn't some made up screen, okay? This is Ted. This is me, all right? I'm hearing that some of these podcasters out there, they're putting up fake screens behind them. No, there's nothing fake here. That's my Vibe board here. This Vibe board keeps track of a lot of different things and allows me to put that image directly on your computer screen. Now we're still sort of working all that out. But here is the table of all the defunct currency notes that I have. Now, at some point in time, people had real money that were exchanged for these currency notes. My question is, what happened to the real money now that I'm holding the currency notes? Look at this. Now, all these certainly look real, don't they? Don't they have unique identifiers on them? What's interesting here is that this particular note, they ran out of ink, so they only printed it on one side. And this one here, I guess they ran out of a pair of scissors or cutter or something. Look at that. So what I'm telling you is that what we're experiencing right now is nothing new. Okay? It's happened thousands of times throughout history. I just happen to have 89 examples of it on my tables over there. So the dollar that you're holding, even your currency in your country, is all going away. You need to be holding the money of your country, the coin of the realm, when this goes down. And if you can exit the other side of this financial morass that we're in right now, you will have created multi-generational wealth. I kid you not.
Yeah, I think that that's a big question on people's minds right now is they are looking to create that multi-generational wealth. So I appreciate you speaking on this. But question here, Ted, do you see gold and silver, let's say in your view, and we're speaking on these things, are they that investment that we knew it to be decades back, or has it turned into some type of an insurance for where we are today, or maybe both, maybe something else?
Well, I don't really think gold or silver is in fact insurance at all. Gold and silver, as the coin of the realm, is actually the money. That's what we're supposed to be using. Okay. Now, they've been able to divorce us from that and get us to think that gold and silver is bad. But guess what? Bob Menendez knows what the value of gold is. He doesn't want to get bribed in dollar bills anymore. He gets bribed in gold bars. Now, that's a smart politician, isn't it? Bob Menendez got caught with gold bars in his safe along with hordes of cash, and they were bribes that were given to him. So he's not even accepting US dollars as bribes anymore. That's how much confidence our politicians have in our own dollar, and these are the jerks that created the mess in the first place. Actually, it all happened a long time ago, but we need somebody of some international stature to get rid of the BIS and make this go back to where every country has their own currency once again, as it should be. The BIS is in control of everything. They're the ones that are fomenting wars. It doesn't cost them anything to wage the war because it's all created on a keyboard. There's nothing real about it. And what they're doing is they're taking nothing, the currency they're inventing into thin air, and they're attaching it through a loan to something, and then they're decreasing the amount of money that you can make in order to be able to service the loan, which means that down the road they're going to wind up with the asset. So they take nothing, okay? The currency created on a keyboard, attach it to something, get somebody to take a loan out against it, which isn't even constitutional in the first place, right? And then they can't make the payments because they slow down the velocity of money, the V1. And they also shrink the M2 money supply. So you can't make it. That was the cause of the Great Depression. The cause of the Great Depression was a reduction in the M2 money supply. So people didn't have the money to make the payments. So guess who got out first? Those people on Wall Street. They got out, the smart guys. So I'm telling you that this is what you need to do. You're going to look at this program months from now, I think, and you're going to realize that you should have taken action at that point in time. Because silver is finite, gold is finite, your efforts are finite, but what you're exchanging it for is infinite. Because they're creating this on a keyboard and it has no value to it. But they're getting you to accept that it has value because it's the way you're going to buy food. But I'm telling you, the civilizations flourished quite well for 4,000 BC up to now, using simply silver and gold as a medium of exchange. But it has to be scarce. We don't want silver to be all over the place. If it was, then your purchasing power is all over the place too. No, you have special talents that were given to you by God. And those talents you're supposed to apply and use, okay? And help benefit other people, and their talents to benefit you, okay? This is the way it's supposed to work as a well functioning society, all right? And it's not working this way because the money system is corrupted and it's being changed. Every country will have their own currency. Every country will have the same value for their currency because an ounce of silver in Botswana is going to be the same value as an ounce of silver in the United States or Singapore or wherever else. We have to have a level playing field. I was on a cruise once. We went to Kiribati. Kiribati is a small island out in the Pacific Ocean. When we got off and walked around the island, it was almost tear jerking. There was no civilization there to speak of whatsoever. They were trying to make combs out of fish bones, something to sell to the tourists that the cruise ships would let off onto their island. And it was most of the huts were the corrugated metal that was left over from like World War II or whatever, and they'd use that to make roofs or whatever. This is how, and this is a country that's owned by the Queen of England. I've been on the Queen of England ship, the HMS Britannia. It was docked in Scotland at the time, and she owns most of these small countries, but they're all poor. When she goes around on her yacht to see all these small countries that she owns, there's a Rolls Royce on board, and he has a crane that lifts the Rolls Royce and lowers it down onto the dock. So as your ship comes in, she can ride around and wave like this. This kind of of exuberant wealth, this type of privilege is not welcomed, as far as I'm concerned. There's no reason why we should not be reviling, we should not be worshiping a king or a queen. We worship our God. We don't worship money. We don't love money. We use money, okay? And that's what has to do with the Sunday sermon series that we're putting out on Sundays. But folks, get with the program here, okay? Money is finite. Your effort is finite. You need to be exchanging for something that's finite. And what you can do right now is, while there's still value left in these redemption certificates called Federal Reserve notes, and in your country, maybe it's Bank of Canada notes or whatever else, Bank of England notes, what have you. But while they still have value, you need to exchange it for the coin of the realm.
All right, Ted Provenza, before we head out, can you tell us how we can follow you and about Ted Speaks?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. First of all, you get yourself a hat, Ted Head hat, and our channel is called Ted Speaks on YouTube. Ted Speaks Truth on a couple other platforms. Our website is tedspeaks.net, also tedspeaks.com. If you want to follow us, reach out. You want to send me an email, anything you learned, anything you thought that I said or I did say, because you can actually transcribe this on most platforms. Anything that I said that you have any questions with, reach out to me. Ted@tedspeaks.net is my email address. Ted@tedspeaks.net. And the channel is growing. We've even come up with our own coin, as a matter of fact. Because there's been some talk about a Type 1 and a Type 2 coin. Well, we came up with a Type 3 coin. Type 3 coin has our own technology embedded in it. It's a QR code that allows you to get in touch with us at any point in time. And all you need to do is put your your phone over top of this thing. And it comes in a nice case. And on the other side of this is another design here, you can see. So we had our own coin made. This was for a silver show that we attended. Okay, we'll be doing another one in Baltimore back in November. Oh, after the silver show, we had a party here at the house. Had a lawn party and brought in half-pound burgers, and we cooked them up at my house. We had somebody fly in from San Diego, with another couple fly in from Colorado, another one fly in from Texas. We had people drive in from as far away as Texas. Other people drove. There was about 30, 40 people came to my house. And the next one we're going to do the same way. This is going to be a lasagna party. The folks that are listening to this are good people. I'll tell you, there's not as many evil people as you think that are out there. There are ankle biters. There are people that don't get it. There are people that are just unhappy with their own life. But I think for the most part, Patrick, they're very nice people. And we had this party at our house. We had our lava doc drive up from Southern Maryland talking to us about the presence of sulfides versus sulfites in silver versus gold, and why the mining yields are going to continue to decrease. And now we have a program coming up. We're going to be talking about this in depth. Lava Doc is what we nicknamed him. Dr. Alan Smith is his name, and he's been studying molten lava since Methuselah. Anyway, we get this stuff. But anyway, we had a lot going on, and there's a lot of ways to keep in touch with us. We'd like you to join our platform as well. Get the word out, because truth doesn't pay anything. And unfortunately, but when you espouse the truth, what helps, I think, make society whole again. Don't you, Patrick?
Amen. Completely agree with that. Amen, Ted. Uh, Ted, again, really, I want to thank you. I hope we can do this again soon. I really want to do this again soon, and let's see how things, begin to roll out.
If we do this in 2 weeks and everything I postulated comes to truth, can I say I told you so?
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me on your platform, and I welcome the opportunity to come back and speak to you all again.
That was Ted Provenza sharing his views on governments, precious metals, and the economy. To see more of Ted's views and work, please go to www.tedspeaks.net. If you like this video, please do subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and share. All are greatly appreciated. Audio-only versions of this interview can be found on iTunes and Spotify.